Welcome to the Joy of Connecting, where modern professionals share stories of meaningful connection and how it can increase business success, unlock career growth, and create personal happiness. If you like what you hear today, get even more by following the Joy of Connecting on LinkedIn and subscribing to our newsletter that features tips from experts on how to network and connect with more meaning. Welcome back to the Joy of Connecting, everyone. We're so glad you're here today. And I am so glad to be here today because I get to speak with a woman that I had the joy of meeting a couple months back when our work in the world of executive women's leadership overlapped. We had a moment of serendipity and found that we were both working on things to support incredible executive women leaders. And we've already talked a lot about just how important connection is to their success, to their happiness, and everything they're working on. It is my pleasure to introduce Maria Doughty. She is the president and CEO of the Chicago Network, among a storied years of experience, but I wanted to bring her specifically today to talk about this incredible historical group that really is an amazing seed of connection in the wonderful city of Chicago. So welcome today, Maria. Glad to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do, but also who you're passionate about helping?
Yeah. Melissa, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for all that you do. I think it's been fun to watch the evolution of your podcast and the joy of connecting, which is really pretty much what I get the privilege and pleasure of doing every single day. I have the joy of leading this incredible organization that's been around about 50 years. It was started in 1979 by 9 women executives that as they continued to climb the corporate ladder, they found that it was very lonely at the top. And they found each other in professional fellowship. That professional fellowship led to personal friendships, and the Chicago Network was born. So it's made up, it's an invitation-only organization of really the most influential, and I'll even say powerhouse senior executive women in Chicagoland across 11 different sectors. I think that's what makes us so fundamentally unique, is it's not just corporate. It's not just technology. It's not just health, science, and medicine. We have women that span all of the sectors of the city, from law, from science, from art and culture, from media, government. So this tapestry of incredible diversity is what makes our connections even more important, because you, of course, you learn from the diversity of our membership, but these women are really all about, our purpose is empowering women to lead. Everything we do is through that lens. And so we are a support system. Some of the women have called it a sisterhood. And to answer your really fundamental question of who am I passionate about helping, it is unequivocally women. That has been something that I have been really committed to since I had in my corporate life, because I moved into this role about 5.5 years ago, which is so crazy. And I left my corporate legal world and stepped into this nonprofit purpose-driven world. I know you know that story because I think you did that a little bit yourself.
Yeah.
But to be able to really work with these incredible women to support them, because I know that when I can help make connections with them, whether it's within the organization itself or even outside of the organization, they have a support system. They will ultimately be the best versions of themselves. And they will then, what I have been talking about is create this butterfly effect. And they will continue to expand on the messages that they hear, all the goodness that they hear, and the important things that we need to do to support women across all the sectors. They will then create that butterfly effect. So I know when I support them, they're strong enough and stronger to be able to be better versions and better leaders. And that is an amplification of just, to me, it really is joy.
In particular, this idea that they are coming from such different industries and they have a lot of differences, but they are feeling that sisterhood, that connection through the organization. What would you say are some of the, and I'm asking to generalize here, some of the connection, some of the topics of connection that bring together this kind of executive female persona? What do you see them talking about?
Oh, it's an excellent question. It really is from everything. Let me step back. The one theme that they have, this connection that is woven amongst all of them, 2 things. Number one, they're fundamentally intellectually curious. They are insatiable learners. And I think that's the one thing that I've really been struck by is they have this voracious love of learning, which is really exciting because for me, from a programmatic standpoint, anything I put in front of them, they gobble up because they want to step into it. And I can tell you some of the topics too. And the second thing that they have is they have this thread of civic engagement. They understand that they have a duty outside of their day-to-day job, that they must serve and work and support the community in which they live and work. And so it's really been interesting to watch, to feed those passion points, topics. I'll tell you what we had last week, an amazing session with two extraordinary female doctors from Rush University Medical Center. We're so fortunate in Chicago to have these amazing healthcare institutions. And we have a number of my members who are sitting on the Rush Medical Board. So we had a program last week talking about women and over 50 and the medical issues and concerns and things that they should know about as they approach 50 and beyond. And I had probably 60 people on that. We did actually, this one we did by virtual. It was because I wanted to make sure that everybody could hear it, and we recorded it. And we had this amazing session, we could have gone for 3 hours, but it was over an hour and a half, where these medical doctors, female medical doctors, were talking about some of the things that our members should know about in terms of heart health, cancer, vaccinations, hormones, right? Menopause, all these things. They touched on so many different things. And again, this is that butterfly effect. So I know if I can give this information to our members, they will then in turn take it to their organizations and their networks and beyond. So it creates that beautiful effect. In 2 weeks, we're going to the Goodman Theater. One of my members is the artistic director of the Goodman Theater, famous theater in Chicagoland. And we are going to be seeing a performance. But before the performance, we're going to be having a panel discussion with the director and the artistic director. And they're going to be talking about the show, like a behind the scenes. I call it only at the network programming, where you get these special experiences where it's a little bit something extra, where then you can celebrate the civic institutions of our city. And I'm passionate about theater because I have a thespian as a child. So that's a self-serving one. But they go to the show, they'll hear from the director and the producer of the show, have a lovely dinner, and then go see the show. And then we celebrate Chicago, and it feeds that artistic part of what they're looking for in terms of their soul. So our programming is so interesting. And we have programming. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting too. I feel so privileged because the women, I'm basically the center hub, and they can reach out to me. And I've really gotten to know these women well. So I know who they are, what their strengths are, what they offer, what they bring to the table. So, for example, if I have a member that reaches out to me who's looking for someone who can help them with an engineering issue regarding they're creating a new manufacturing plant. They have an engineering question. Yes, they could hire an outside consultant, but sometimes just talking to somebody in the network who is a friend or at least a member of the network. I think the most amazing thing with this group, we have about 560 members. Anytime anybody calls to talk to each other, they may not know each other, but the fact that they know that they're members of the Chicago network, they take each other's calls, they step in to help where they can. I have never seen anything like this ever. And I've been like you, we've been members of so many organizations and groups, but this one is very unique. So I would say it could be from anything from really truly work-related things, HR concerns, medical things. It could be strategic planning concerns, vendor issues. And even too, one of the things that you'll see that I'm finding is so many of these women who are sitting in that top job are really struggling because they have caregiving responsibilities. And sometimes they get to the point where they feel exasperated and they just need somebody to talk to, just who can relate to the experience that they're going through that's at their level. That's what I think is so cool, is they're all truly peers of one another. So they really truly understand how they're balancing everything, or trying to balance everything, I should say.
Interesting how you pulled out some of the topics, which obviously are not necessarily work related, but the thing that stood out to me was the topics can draw people together. But what you started out with was for lack of a better word, the vibes, right? There are certain intangibles that come with a community And when someone ascribes to those and is aligned with them, whatever conversation they have is going to work when they show up with those mindsets. And that was what you started with. And I love that thinking because there's always topics that people may or may not need more in their lives. And there's certain topics which we see recurring over and over again. But I like how you flipped it and really addressed the idea of the, not the functional, but the skill set, the common ways that someone approaches being a part of a community. If they have those in common, the topics that come next are really just the cherry on top. They're approaching all these conversations in the same way. And that's where the alignment feels like it's happening to me.
Yeah, that's a really excellent observation. It's just this, it's these threads that are the commonalities of, even though they could be just so different. You have someone who's a technology giant, and then I have medical healthcare expert. They definitely have massively different potential professional skill sets, but they have these common threads. And what I love about this concept of connecting, particularly in the network, is that I know that I can bring them together on certain common connections. And then from there, I can step away. I can bring two people together. And I know when I bring them together, I've done my job. And then I can step out of that. I can step out and let them take it wherever they're going to want to take it. And what's been so fun to watch is those like simple connections that I've made with these members have in some cases led to these really long-term friendships that I would never have imagined. And honestly, they would never have met each other had it not been for the network. Because women particularly, this is the one thing that I've really noticed, we're so siloed in our profession. I'm a lawyer and I have a lot of lawyer friends. And then I have a lot of friends who may be in government or politics because that's the things we gravitate to. But it really is a superpower of the network that we do make sure that we try to bring people together that would never have met each other. Getting an astrophysicist to come out of the lab to be able to meet someone who is a nonprofit leader who's working in, food insecurity is so fun because it's so joyful and they love being together. I cannot tell you, we had over 70 programs last year and there's 4 people on my team. Like there's 4 of us. We're a tiny little organization, but I can't put enough programming on because all they do is they want to be together. So for me, whether I put if I have 5 people who attend an event or 500 people who attend an event, I know it's a win because I know that they will they'll build community and connections with each other. It absolutely for sure. However, I bring them together.
You know what's interesting, and obviously you and I have a lot of similarities in the work that we do with Wednesday Women and the Chicago Network, both being in this cross-industry, cross-functional. That connects really deeply to what I do. But I think the other thing I want to peel back a bit, especially for our listeners who are thinking about how to do this, is this role that you play as a connector. Leslie and I feel very strongly about that too. You have to have in broader swipe communities, it's a community manager, right? There is a literal role. For both of us, it's the leadership of the org who actually fills that role. Talk to me a little bit about how you play that role. It's not an easy one. And a lot of it comes with natural talent of being able to see those connections and think about who should be talking with whom. How do you actually approach that tactically?
You really have to be open and you have to understand that it's not always going to be perfectly in your time. Meaning, I try to make myself available really broadly. And I think when you play that role, you have to fundamentally come in with absolute conviction and dedication to saying you want to do that. For me, this is a passion, purpose thing. I feel the whole way I even got into this role, which is so wacky, right? If I look back at it, I was not a member of the network because I did not meet the requirements in the role that I had at the time, which is fine. I knew a little bit about the network, but it was a very closed organization. If you really have to, and that there's a reason for it. I get it now. I understand the reason. but I knew about 20% of the members of the network. And when the prior CEO was retiring, I got a series of emails from various people who knew me and said, "You need to look at this job." And I said, "What? Are you kidding? I've been in this corporate legal role I loved my job. I was doing some really interesting things." And then I kept getting more of these emails. And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go with it." And I'm one of these people, you have to just have an open heart. And when you go into something without preconceived notions or judgment or thoughts of where it's going to take you or how you're going to step into it, it really creates a much more enjoyable experience. Meaning, I went in with just, okay, I'm going to hear what they have to say. And then the more I learned about what these women, who they were, what they needed, what I thought that they needed, and where most fundamentally, where I think I could take the organization if I stepped into this role, it was one of those, oh, this is a no brainer. And I leapt. I took a leap. And then I think I shared with you previously, I signed my contract in February of 2020 with an April 2020 start date. So I do not recommend changing your whole life during a global pandemic. That
Especially when
was a crazy,
events and gathering is critical to the
crazy. I mean, we talked about this before, right? You
Yeah.
just don't know. But I think I went into it with an open heart, an open mind. I knew that whatever I was going to step into for this role was not about me. And that's a really hard thing to do, I think, for a lot of people, right? Because you want to take a career, and maybe because I was at the point in my career where I felt that I could put my ego to the side or put my kind of where I was so driven. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I am like American dream driven person, right? I put that side of, I'm going to put myself to the side for a second because I really wanted to see what I could do in this space. And that's what kind of, when I did that, it was this clear path of, this is what I'm a very faith-based person. This is exactly where I was supposed to be. And it's funny too, because whenever I get a little, you go, oh my gosh, what have I done? There's what have I done moments, right? You second guess yourself. And then I get set right back on course because I am not kidding you. Inevitably, somebody will call me and say, I really need to talk to you. Do you have a minute? I'm struggling with this one thing and I really could use your help. And I'm like, yes. And then I'm like, that's right. I know what my purpose is. So I think the answer is you have to put yourself to the side, right? You have to know what feeds your soul. And for me, this has really fed my soul in ways that I never imagined it was going to be as nourishing and as joyful. And people laugh. I tell them I truly have the best job on earth, no question. And I love what I do. I love that I can help these women, but it's not about me. And I think that's one thing that you really have to, when you go into something like that, just like you do with Wednesday Women, it wasn't about you. You put all of yourself to the side because you want to support the women that are in that community to be able to find their best versions of themselves, and there's so much opportunity and there's so many things that women second guess themselves. And I watch it with women who are really confident, but they still also have this moment of, wait a minute. And that's why I love my job because I can just say, stop it. No, you're okay. You're a rock star. You need that cheerleader always beside you. And I kind of feel like that's where ultimately my role is.
Absolutely. The core piece of being a community manager or somebody who's in the heart of a community or a network, it is the care for others. And I can see that coming through in everything you say and the sparkle in your eye as we're talking. Maybe one thing I'll ask, and I know where I want to make sure I keep you on schedule for your day. Is there, in all the work you've done, is there someone else that you look to that often you say, wow, they do community right? They get connection right. And who is that person?
It's really interesting. It's a great question. And I've been so fortunate over the course of my career to just have met some incredible people that do this right. So it's really hard for me to say there's one person that is really the key person, but I can tell you the quality that they all have. I'm just inspired by those who are connectors for the sake of others. And what I have learned is going into a relationship, whether it's business or personal, when I go into the relationship without expectations or demands, like truly selflessly going into that relationship, I have been joyfully surprised. I do not believe in coincidences. So for me, there's always a reason for a connection that I make. Sometimes the reason doesn't manifest itself for years later, right? But I know, and I've watched this throughout my life, that it will somehow, some way, the connection, the reason will come up. And so I think that's probably the best way I could answer that question, Melissa, because it is truly, there's so many people out there that do it for the right reasons. And so it's about doing it for the right reasons.
I have one real tricky question that I have to ask, because this has been on my brain so much, especially when it comes to women, and especially when it comes to these leaders who I would say are some of the biggest givers, right? They have built companies, they give to their companies, they give to their investors, they give to their families, they give to their community. Take me through how you approach that when it comes to the idea of this kind of idea of we have to give without expectation lot. Where are the boundaries between when and we can answer this for ourselves as well. Where are the boundaries between putting things out there with no expectation and also not draining ourselves dry? It's a tricky one, right?
It is so tricky. And I've watched it. I watched this during the pandemic. I watched these women basically selflessly get to the point where they had given and given, and then they hadn't put the oxygen mask on themselves right first, which really happened. And then we saw just this real step away of so many women who left the workforce after the pandemic for various reasons, right? We're still dealing with some of that,
Yeah.
that well, I'll call backlash or whatever you want to, however you want to necessarily describe it. I think that it's about the people that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people that are that remind you of the fact that you're going, you need to step away, you're going too hard, that you need to find time and find ways about wellness. And it's that constant reminder of people who are close to you to be able to say, and it's interesting. I literally had a conversation with one of my members recently, and she is going 1,000 miles an hour doing amazing work. And it was interesting. I wasn't sure whether I should say this. I debated in my brain before I said this because I didn't want to come off as sounding, I didn't want to come off as sounding preachy, right? But I said to her, I said, you really need to take care of yourself. And it was so fascinating. I think I asked her, I said, what are you doing to take care of yourself? I think is how I phrased the question.
That's right.
And she stopped like in mid sentence. And she really recognized that was a problem. And we didn't solve it at that moment. You don't have to solve it. I think what's important is when you see that in people, whether it's women or friends or whatever, men, children, it really is about calling it out, offering support if that's the appropriate thing to do, but making them think about it. Because sometimes you have to have permission, like you need permission to take care of yourself, which is so wacky. It really is wacky. But it's this concept of it's okay for me to do something for myself. So I'll tell you what we're doing. This is really exciting.
Okay.
In March, we are going, a group of us are going. I'm so excited. One of my board members is the CFO of the Hyatt. And Marival, which is a spa in Tucson, is actually a Hyatt property.
Yes.
So we are doing this only at the network experience at Marival. I have about 35 women going. I was open to whoever wanted to go. Obviously, scheduling is always crazy, but we are going to spend 4 days together in wellness, in just spa relaxation, rejuvenation, all these things. And it's going to be this holistic healing. I'm so excited, but I'm forcing it upon them in the sense of, right, okay, let's go do this together. And I think you need that person to remind you, and then somebody that's going to pull you along to make it happen. Because sometimes some of these women, they do need that. They do need somebody that's going to put it all in a box for them and then force them to step into it. And I've never had a situation where I have pulled somebody along where it hasn't been a positive experience for that individual who really could step back and say, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for recognizing that I needed that. And I just would really encourage all of your listeners not to hesitate, not to be afraid to do that for someone that they may know really well, or maybe they don't know that well, but this this kind of these kindnesses, these things, these connections that are made in a way that are just truly selflessly, but also about humanity, which I think we all need a little bit of in this world. They have impacts that I think people don't recognize. And those are the impacts that I think could really continue on. And you can create continued, we'll go back to that butterfly effect concept, but I think that's where I would leave it. Yeah.
I don't know that we've really talked about that yet on an episode so far, but this idea of sure, you've got the connections and sure you talk about and sure you may find outcomes, but that piece of the connection, which is looking out for each other, giving grace. I would say I see that a lot, just giving grace. And also we talk a lot about just the celebration, recognition, recognizing someone. These are very small things that aren't like a huge give and get, but they're just small bits in the connection that can be super powerful. I love that you peeled the layers back to find that with us today.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And you know what? I'll leave you with something funny. We have two rules in the network. Number one is no guilt. So it goes to your grace, right? This is a serious, this is what these two have been foundational rules since day one in 1979.
Especially
Nope.
for our population of it, because they show up and they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't done anything in 2 months." And you say, "Stop it.
Yeah.
Do what? Apologize. You're busy."
That's exactly what I say. I say, stop, just stop. And then the second one is the 24-hour rule, where we ask members if somebody reaches out to you from the network that you do your best to get back to them within 24 hours, even if it's to say, Maria, I'm hopping on a plane. I got your message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, but it is a connection. And it's amazing how those two simple rules really create this clear foundational support system that has lasted for nearly 50 years. Crazy.
I am so grateful that we got to peel back a little bit of the magic of how the Chicago Network has been so effective for this great group over so many years, and love hearing about your leadership in particular. Before I let our audience go, is there anything that we should know about, to follow, to support? I know it's an exclusive group in certain ways for a good reason and focused. Is there any other thing you'd like us to follow or watch along with or support?
I would love it. So we have a women's leadership summit. It's called Launchpad in September. It's usually in September. This year it's going to be September 14th. It is open to anyone. And the focus of this Launchpad program, it's in Chicago, and it'll be at the Hyatt Hotel in Chicago, the Hyatt Regency in Chicago. But it is really about, it's focused for women who are sitting in that mid-level, right? That VP director level spot, who are trying to find, they have their aspirations to be in the C-suite, to find their way from a professional development standpoint. We got very specific professional development training that they receive at that summit, but more fundamentally, and this is the thing that I wish I could really spread across the group, is it's about community. It's about these women who come, those hundreds of women that come to this Launchpad Summit. It's about meeting people that you otherwise would not ever meet, because you don't know where those relationships will take you ultimately within your life. And it is about all the things you talk about with connecting. And many of your guests have talked about in the past, right? It's about nurturing those relationships. It's about the selflessness of the relationships. It's also about using those connections when you need the connection. Don't be afraid to, that's why you have them. Make the ask. So I would just put a big shout out for Launchpad. So if anybody's in Chicago, it's open to everyone. We're about to open up the registration line. We'd love to see people who even out of state that want to come and be part of this incredible community that we've put together.
Fantastic. I will make sure for listeners that the info is in the show notes, of course. So if you want to hop on and check that out. And thank you so much, Maria, for sharing your experience and obviously the joy that you have and you get from connecting today.
Melissa, thank you. Thank you for all that you do. It's amazing. And I'm so grateful and privileged to have spent some time with you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review to help us reach more listeners. Have a story of your own to share or know someone who should be on the show? Visit www.joyofconnect.ing and let us know. Now go send a short message to someone you've been meaning to connect with. You never know where it might lead.